Board of Selectmen to order for Tuesday, February 6, 2024 at 7:03 p.m. Okay, so purpose of this meeting is simply to continue the budget discussions that we've had over the last several days. As we know from yesterday, we had a chance to go through our cut list and to discuss a number of items in some detail. I met with Kate and Jen today and talked about all this at length. And so we're going to summarize these cuts, but one thing that we teed up in that discussion for you all to weigh in on is a follow-up on a comment I made yesterday, and that is pertaining to the ARPA funds. So as we've been going through discussions about ARPA funds, as everybody knows, those funds need to be allocated and encumbered by the end of this year, and then they need to be spent in their entirety by December 31st of 2025. So every time we come up and have a discussion about these, it started off with flooding-related investments, and we all concluded, well, we don't want to do that because those projects might take longer than the available time. Then we say, well, let's do some of these other projects. But the fact is some of even those do have risk attached to them in terms of either not being spent by the end of 25 or not being fully encumbered by the end of 24. And to be clear, we lose those funds if that happens. So we have an opportunity, I think, here to change trajectory on that. My recommendation, and Kate will build on this, is why don't we take all the ARPA money, which we're going to spend in any case, and let's spend it right now, like all of it. And there are some implications of all that. One of them is that we can take several of the projects that we identified as cuts yesterday, but to be funded by ARPA, we're going to do all that. I think we can go further than that and actually take one other investment, which was one of the public works trucks for about $400,000. We're going to pull that and make that a cut, and we're going to have that to be funded out of ARPA. What I would do, and we'll go through that list in a minute, is we would stop there and then take every last dime in ARPA that's still available, for which there's any uncertainty about the funding, take all of that money, identify those projects, and after our vote tonight, send that amount to the Board of Finance and let them take that amount and allocate it among the capital projects that were not going to be bonded this year, but funded out of the operating budget or the regular budget as opposed to being bonded. That way, what we can do is we can ensure that all the ARPA money is spent, that we're not going to lose any of it, and importantly, it helps take the pressure off of a tight budget year this year. So by getting the money out of the ARPA fund now and using it now where we need it, it'll make, I think, the Board of Finance's task easier and take some pressure off of them in terms of the budget work that they need to do. So let me stop there. Kate, why don't you take it from there, and Jennifer, take us through our cuts and maybe build on the point I made about the ARPA fund.
So one of the handouts in front of you and that I'd sent to you by email earlier is a list of the ARPA funds that can be closed out now. And they've all been either suggested by the department head or reviewed with the department head. So these are not surprises to anyone. And then below you'll see things that we had talked about at the last meeting, cutting from the capital fund with the recommendation that they be funded by ARPA. The only thing new here is, as John mentioned, the loader.
Which we were going to do anyway.
Which we were going to do anyway.
But we're just going to cut it and fund it with ARPA.
It's a nice big project that we can get out of the way and get some of the ARPA funds used.
Yeah. So just to build on this is all the stuff that we know we can identify with certainty now. So between tonight and when we hand off this budget formally to the Board of Finance on March 5th, 6th, whenever that is, what Kate and Jack, others will do, we'll scour the remaining ARPA kind of funds, if you will, and make sure that we've pulled out everything that even has the slightest chance of not being fully expended by the end of 2025 or encumbered by the end of 24. We will pull the money out of those projects, we'll review it, we'll probably take it to the ARPA committee just to make sure they've got formal sign off on all that. Then we'll have that number formally to give to the Board of Finance when we give them our budget. So they'll have a budget, but they'll have an additional unspecified cut, if you will, which is really a pool of ARPA funds that they can use to fund some capital projects that are not being bonded, or anything else that's not, that they'd like to replace. But again, it should take some pressure off their budget.
I wouldn't go as far as say anything else, because it does still have to fit within the ARPA rules, and it should be town projects, not,
Not school, I get that.
Not school.
Yeah. Well, as far as we can humanly possible.
well, the school had their own allocation
Well, no,
from
not,
ARPA.
yeah, I know, so, but we're not gonna spend on school, but anything we can do that,
Yes.
that's town related,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and there's a lot of capital projects, which is what this would be ideal for. There are still a lot of capital projects that the Board of Selectmen has included in the budget that might be appropriate for ARPA funding.
But we just don't have that amount from.
Right, we don't have the
we gotta
amount
go
of
think
that,
about
of what we can reallocate
Yeah, so
nailed
we'll-
down right yet.
We
We'll
don't
be
have
talking
that.
about that soon.
Okay, so we don't have that number right now.
Right,
That's why we're doing.
right.
So is the ARPA money, is any of it going towards anything other than capital?
No,
Okay, so for instance, the dredging last night, could
No.
we pay for that with ARPA?
I think we could. I was thinking more on the capital in this year's budget.
Are you recommending that we look at things that we rejected this year and rethink that? And maybe
No.
include them because they would be included next year?
No?
Okay.
Well, to build on that point, one of the things I asked her was, okay, so we have this ARPA money, there's a certain amount of it that's uncertain as to whether we'd be able to spend it in the required timeline. So the theory of the case is we're going to pull the money from those projects, and with that pool of money, we're going to fund other stuff, which we would have done anyway. And so the question is, are there projects that we've cut, for example, or existing projects on here that we could pull to fund right now, right? Or projects that you cut that you're going to want to do anyway that maybe you postpone till next year that we could do right now. I'd like to do the projects that are in this year's budget, because by doing that and reserving the extra ARPA funds just for that, it takes pressure off this year's budget.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd like to do.
And I did look, while we were meeting this afternoon, I did look through all the capital items that I cut to see if there was anything that lent itself to ARPA. And there was only one, the ventilation fans from the Darien Fire Department. The rest, I would be concerned about the department's ability to actually put it out to bid, get bid specs done, get them done, get the bids back, get contracts signed, and have it all allocated by the end of the calendar year.
Kate, how does it work with the police cars and supply chain and all of that? So,
That's one of the concerns. The supply chain has been really bad. So we got 4 cars just this week. Some of those were from a budget, not the current year's budget, but the last year's budget.
Right.
It's been difficult to get police cars. We typically don't bid those until the spring. And we've had a lot of problems with nobody even bidding on the vehicles. So
So
that's
we-
one that I don't have any confidence that we would be able to do them.
okay, so you're not, those wouldn't be included in
No,
this? Okay,
no.
got it. Okay.
The criteria is anything that the Board of Finance picks to spend those extra funds on, they should be able to look at it and then confirm with you that there's no uncertainty around whether they would actually get the funds expended against the ARPA timetable.
Yeah.
Any questions about the strategy? Sarah on the phone or Mike, Marcy?
I do, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, go, you go.
So my only concern is that we had put aside money for mental health support, that we had put aside money for food insecurity and for nonprofits. And that by taking that money away, we don't go back and look to fund those projects. And those are not projects that you typically see in your operating budgets, that you typically see in your capital projects. And I want to make sure that they don't fall by the wayside and then never come back, because I feel that is important money, given all the work that's happened with the town, with the mental health task force and so forth. I think it's important. I know we haven't found the right place for those funds yet, but I do think it's still crucial.
Well, Sarah, we didn't take all the food insecurity money away. I did speak with Ally, and We left sufficient funds that she could do similar to what she did this year with providing extra gift card support for grocery stores to her clients. We left enough funds that we could do that again this year. There is a smaller amount left in the mental health support, but that's one that we've really had a hard time
I know.
finding. And, remember, we have to allocate it by the end of this
I know.
year.
Yeah, one other thing about that, Sarah, is that it's not to say that we couldn't find entities or nonprofits to support. It's just because the ARPA dollars have specific rules attached to
Oh,
them that makes
no,
it.
John, I can totally appreciate that, and I genuinely do, and I understand all the parameters. It kind of left that at the front of the mind, right? That we had this bucket that we could spend the money for, and I know we need to figure out the best way to still do that going forward, but I liked that it kind of kept that at the front of the mind.
Yeah, I'd say going forward, without ARPA restrictions, if you will, to go and say, okay, as a board and as a town, what would be some incremental smart investments that we could make with regard to mental health and food insecurity, that we would be freer to do without the ARPA restrictions kind of hanging over the allocation. So
Right.
in the coming months, if the human services folks come up with some ideas that would make sense in that regard, then we certainly should talk about that. I mean, I've stressed mental health a number of times in my public comments, and I think we
Yep.
all collectively view that as a real priority for the town. It's just a question of saying, what's a smart investment of that money that would make a lasting impact, which I think should be our
Yep.
criteria. And
I agree.
the question is what would that be? And we just need to think about it some more, but I agree with you, we shouldn't leave the notion of this type of support aside.
All right, thank you.
Mike, you had something?
I had the same concerns that Sarah mentioned, but now I'm satisfied. And my initial thought was that, if we do this, that, like the people who organize this, we have to make sure that we, dot our I's and cross our T's, because I'm sure every community in the country that's gotten ARPA money is doing this, and whatever entities overseeing the rules and regs and how this is done, you don't want there to be a potential for any clawback, so let's make sure that we do this 110%, right?
Very helpful reminder. Yep, absolutely.
Kate, is there any, it's small, but for instance, Ally's emergency training, is there any way to kind of prepay some of those dues?
So it's, the only thing that we can really do there is to pre-order books. That's really, she has two expenses related to that mental health first aid training, the books and if we offer refreshments. So we can pre-buy books, and she and I have already talked about doing that.
What about her license?
You can't, and that's not a,
You can't, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions on the ARPA strategy we're going to adopt, but I also want to make sure you all had a chance to look at the cut list. Why don't you kind of go through where we're standing right now, Kate? And let's see if anyone had any further thoughts on this overnight, or if you had any other questions.
Okay, so just, there's no changes here. Reduce building full-time, we're going to have a new hire at a lower rate, so we know we can do that. Library had offered up improvements in their budget, so that $13,000 is all set. $4,200 was something that was an error in the registrar of voters budget, so no risk there. The $1,700 in the public works budget, again, same thing, new hire at a lower wage. Parks and Rec, same thing, new hire at a lower wage. Those are all good. Cyber insurance, our broker has indicated that the increase would be significantly less than we had originally budgeted. We are going to reduce the Darien Fire Department budget by $3,000 to bring their increase more in line with the other two departments. $5,000 from the invasive budget in Parks and Recreation, bringing contingency down by $75,000 to back to the level it was at the start of fiscal '24. Fire Commission training, reduced one or two of the classes that they had proposed. reduce accrued leave redemption by $25,000, assuming that we'll have lower payouts, and then adding $225,000 as a transfer out to the Great Island Management Fund to offset the reduction in lease revenue. On the revenue side, we have to reduce the supplemental motor vehicle. That's really driven by the mill rate reduction. As we talked about, cars don't increase in value. So when the mill rate comes down, there's going to be less revenue there. Ed had assumed or had proposed a $50 per ton tipping fee for recyclables. At Monica's suggestion, we're increasing that to $75 per ton, which matches what we would pay on the outside, going out. And then health had a duplicate entry in water supply permits, so we have to reduce that by 5,000. So that's $123,000. Is that a reduction to taxes or an increase in tax?
Oh, that's an increase.
That's an increase in taxes in the general fund. So net, we increased the tax burden on the operating. So then capital, a number of these, remember, would be still, they're cut from the general fund, or cut from our budget, but be funded by ARPA money. So the town clerk, vault and security, the pistols, the rifles, all going to ARPA. Hose replacement for Darien, fund half of it this year, half of it next year. Rotation turnout gear for the fire commission. Purchase 21 sets this year, purchase 9 next year. Fire marshal converting the pickup to utility, 17,000 cut from, but that would be funded through ARPA. Basketball cracks and the fixing the cracks in the basketball court at Cherry Lawn and the Baker fence would be funded through ARPA. Weed Beach tennis wall delay until more information. That would be a street out cut unless we get more information from Parks and Rec on that. Add back the stand-on blower to the Park and Rec budget and move the loader from Public Works to the ARPA fund. And then the Weed Beach Meadow and Trail, it doesn't have a tax impact because it had been proposed to be bonded, but to remove that completely until we have firm numbers on the cost. So that reduces the taxes needed for capital by $648,000.
Questions? Okay. Hearing no questions, Kate or Jen, you guys want to go through the overall picture as it stands right at the moment?
Which one do you, okay.
Just the year-over-year change?
Year, okay. So, this is, the numbers in the mill rate, Jen, for fiscal '24, are those cast with the current grand list or the old grand list?
Old grand list.
Okay, so, and then 25 is on the new grand list.
Yep.
Okay, so remember that when you look at the taxes needed going up, but the mill rate going down, that's a, factor of the grand list. So Jen's broken it out here, operations, town and library, to give you total operations, the non-tax revenue. So the net Board of Selectmen operations have gone up about $1.5 million. Then the debt service line, that debt service has gone down by $435,000. So the taxes needed to support Board of Selectmen operations have gone up by about $1.1 million. Capital, the increase in the Board of Selectmen's capital is lower, $700,000, but the revenue is also lower. So the taxes needed to support that budget has gone up. Overall, we need about $2.8 million more to support Board of Selectmen operations and capital. And then you see the mill rates. The taxes shown down here, that's on a median assessed value, what the median assessed value was in 2022 and what it, on the grand list of 2022, and then on the grand list of 2023. They're not necessarily the same house. Those are the median, based on the median assessed value for each year.
Okay. And just to be clear, this is everything except the Board of Education's budget?
Yes.
Okay. Questions? Okay, as Kate said at the beginning of our process, these are the expenditures that we as a board collectively think are necessary to run the town, necessary to provide the services that we think the people of Darien expect, both in terms of our operating budget to maintain the provision of those services, as well as capital investments to keep our capacity to provide services in good shape. So we've taken, I think, a pretty sharp pencil to the proposed numbers, and we're going to recommend this to the Board of Finance for their consideration. As I said before, it's going to be a combination of these numbers that we're proposing, plus a cut that's going to come from these ARPA fund reallocations that we will do in the coming weeks, so that by the time we present the budget in March to the Board of Finance, it'll be what is going to be shown in our resolution tonight, plus whatever this ARPA summary is, and we'll have a chance to discuss all that as a board before it goes to the Board of Finance. Other questions?
Nope.
Okay, I think we're in good shape. So we are at the point of this resolution. Is the number that I'm showing here for an appropriation, is that the 43063100?
No,
No. Okay.
no. It's a combination.
Oh, it's a combination of everything. I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah,
not reading.
and it's broken out into different categories than
Got it.
what is shown on the year over year.
Okay, but this is all, we don't need to change any of this?
No, I checked it with Jen.
Okay. So I will read this very short resolution, and I'll need a motion to approve that. Resolution, fiscal year 2024 to 2025 budget. Whereas the Board of Selectmen have reviewed and evaluated the town administrator's proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25 and the 6-year capital plan, and whereas following completion of this review, a number of changes and modifications have been made to the budget now, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approve the modified annual budget for 2024-25 and the 6-year capital plan. Be it further resolved that the 2024-25 budget and 6-year capital plan be submitted to the Board of Finance for their consideration. For the general operating fund, $40,908,407. For debt service, $12,532,594. Transfers out to other funds of $225,000, for a total general fund of $53,666,001. Other funds include sewer operating fund for $4,602,595. The parking operating fund of $93,100. $923,100. The recreation programs fund of $1,400,000. The capital fund of $4,318,522. The sewer capital fund of $94,800. And the parking capital fund of $275,000. Could I have a motion to approve that resolution? Monica moves, Mike second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, 5-0
Thank you.
for that resolution. Is there any other business we need to attend to tonight, Kate?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Mike moves, Monica seconds, all in favor? You're,
Aye.
all right. Thank you. We
Thanks,
stand
Sarah.
adjourned. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Good night,
Thanks.
Sarah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Bye.